Director Gitlin?
Here.
Director Short?
Here.
Director Roberts? Here. Vice Chair Cohen?
Here.
Madam Chair Kime?
Here. Okay. Hi. Darren, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
My pleasure. Ready? Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting August 15th.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second. A motion and a second.
Director Roberts? Director Short?
Yes.
Director Gitlin?
Yes.
Madam Chair Kime?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cohen?
Yes. Great. At this time, we'll take any public comment. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak to the board at this time? Seeing nothing. Let's move on to the consent agenda. We have a couple of things. 5A, adopt resolution 2018-1904, declaring 5 RCTA retired buses as surplus and authorizing the general manager to dispose of the vehicles and deposit proceeds into the RCTA revenue account.
Move to approve consent. Second.
We got a motion and a second. Can you please pull a vote?
Director Gitlin?
Public comment.
There's
Yes.
no public. Do we have any public comment on the consent agenda?
Sorry about that. We do have an absence of public, I understand.
I know, and I still need to ask. Thank you, Darren. Okay.
He's so good. He helps me with that all the time.
Director Gitlin?
Yes.
Director Short?
Yes.
Director Roberts?
Yes.
Madam Chair Kime?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cohen?
Yes. Great. Item 6, accept 2018 RCTA Transit Asset Management Plan and authorize a general manager to submit. Do you want to talk about this, Joe?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Madam Chair. This item was a project that kept me very busy in the month of September. So this one's sort of being brought to you retroactively, but we didn't have a meeting, but I thought it was important enough that we should talk about briefly. This is a new unfunded mandate from the FTA based on they became aware over the last 10 years or so of a major issue, you know, in United States public transit, and that's basically a deficiency in capital funding. So starting in 2015, they identified that 40% of the nation's public transit buses and 23% of the rail cars were in marginal or poor condition. That estimated the backlog at $90 billion of deferred maintenance and replacement at that time. So in reaction to that, the FTA came up with this new TAM plan effort, which stands for Transit Asset Management, and the requirement of all transit agencies, great and small, we're the latter, small, but we all have to create our own TAM plan and submit that. You may recall last winter we submitted our initial targets. It was like the first step of the process, and then by October 1st, 2018, all transit agencies had to submit their first ever TAM plan to Caltrans in our case and to the FTA in the urbanized area case. It was it's a good project because it forces the agency to look critically within and look at their funding levels and their fleets to see, and facilities to see if you're really going to have enough money planned to come in to replace your assets and keep them in a state of good repair. So what we discovered at Redwood Coast Transit was generally not too bad of news. The first step is, interestingly enough, after decades of publishing a set of useful life criteria for vehicles, when the TAM plan was announced, the FTA created a new useful life benchmark, which has the acronym of ULB, that was actually longer for every set, every different category. And I think that was to maybe make the backlog, once they get this all assembled, it might have been to mitigate the huge amount of capital backlog that they're probably about to discover. But the good news is they allowed each transit agency to apply their own experience and adopt their own useful life benchmark. So what we ended up doing here at Redwood Coast, and what a lot of transit agencies are using, is the old standard, which was based on Altoona testing, which is this little town in Pennsylvania, but they do real-life, years-long tests on transit vehicles and establish their useful life in real-life conditions, driving them and putting them through the heavy-duty work that buses go through. So we're basically going back to their old standards, which was 7 years for our type of buses, which are called cutaways, and 5 years for our passenger automobile, which is the one smallish dial-a-ride vehicle. We got the MV1s, technically called a passenger auto. So 7 and 5 was the old FTA standard before they started this TAM plan project. So we're going to go with that, and that's what we use to then plug into our useful life to evaluate our targets. And the justification is simple. Not only was that the national standard up until this year, but we have a very difficult terrain and operating environment here. So even that's, you know, 7 years for our cutaways is a pretty long time because we put a lot of miles on them in difficult conditions. So then turning to page 2, we kind of analyze our ability to replace our fleet at those useful life targets or close to them. And we currently have 13 vehicles in the revenue fleet, and our target to replace them, one of the challenges we have here in California, and I think across the nation, is we don't have the rural transit capital money that we at one point did. So it's a challenge to replace vehicles because the only real remaining funding source that we can count on is the FTA 5339 fund. And that's, it's been a little choppy for us, but we have been provided with 2 buses out of the last 3 years. We apply every year. There's an annual call, and 2 out of 3 we've scored on. We just found out about the second one recently, so that's good news, a little bit of good news that I have for you. So at that rate, we can probably get almost a bus a year, which is not going to be quite what we need, but it could be worse. So basically, our data will be added to the national snapshot, and we're hoping that the FTA sees this and perhaps increases the capital funding nationwide or finds some other way to at least mitigate some of the shortfall that they already know exists, and they're going to have an even greater idea here when all this data is compiled. We also took a look at our facility. We have basically the one big facility is our Williams Drive facility, and we had special thanks to Nick, our mechanic, who also now doubles as a building inspector and evaluator. So we had Nick go through the building and do its rating, and I believe it comes in rated at about a 3.2 right now, which is decent, but there are some areas of wear and aging that we've seen. 3 is adequate, no, not decent. Let me get my nomenclature correct. So 3.2 is okay. The building's going to need some investment in order to continue. I believe it's rated for 30 years, and right now it is about 16, 17 years old. And then we looked at our bus shelters, which are fairly new, and that was about it. We don't have a lot of other assets besides the building, a few shelters, and our 13 vehicles. The one thing another thing that this was interesting, and it helped us think strategically ahead, is we looked at the current fleet mix, what type of vehicles and size, and then we kind of thought out what we optimally need, knowing what we know now about our services. So we think we can drop to 12, which is good, because as we went through, we're going to have a hard time. To replace 13, we'd almost need 2 buses per year, which looks to be a little beyond the funding that we know of right now. But we think we can get down to 12 over time, because now that we have a mechanic and a maintenance program in place that's so successful, with our current peak pullout, we think we can get it down to 12. So that helps a little bit as far as on replacement value. Again, that's, as I mentioned on that page, that's contingent upon continuing to have a strong maintenance program, and Nick's done a heck of a job with that here in his 2 years. How long have we had Nick? About 2? Yeah, so he's done a wonderful job. The fleet we needed all 13 and some just a couple, 3 years ago. So that's basically it. So we submitted the plan. We're asking for permission to submit the plan, but we did submit it on time, so we're compliant on October 1st. And any questions, I'm here to answer.
Joe, I have a quick question. Is there a mileage component? You've mentioned 5 and 7 years respectively. So what does that translate to in miles?
They don't. That's probably one of the areas you could attack the TAM plan approach, is it doesn't take into account mileage. That's why we sort of had to balance that and go with 7 and 5.
What are our mileage?
Generally
speaking, a typical
It
vehicle.
varies within our subfleet. So even within our cutaway category, we have our largest 5 or 6, and they're deployed on the regional routes that go to Arcata, Gasky, Smith River, and they pile the miles up. So those buses, that's why we optimally want 6 in that group, so we can divide the mileage out, because they really pile up the miles. The in-town buses, which are also cutaways except for the $1 ride sedan, those don't pile up the miles nearly as quick.
I know diesel vehicles cost more money, but is there a longer shelf life for a diesel vehicle if we move in that direction?
There absolutely is, yeah, and that's why we want diesel to be the best fit for our regional buses, because they'll be able to endure that high mileage better.
So the shelf life is longer, but they're also more expensive.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Any other comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Let's go on to item number 7, discussion fiscal year 2017-18 annual RCTA service performance data.
Madam Chair, do we have an action to take on this, Joe?
Yes,
adopt
I
the
think
resolution?
so. We need you to accept the TAM plan. It's
Is
an
there a motion?
interesting
Is that a motion,
nomenclature.
required on
Yeah,
that?
we need a motion to
Also
accept
move.
it.
Is it do we need the two-part? We need to direct you to submit it to Caltrans also, is that?
Thank you, Darren, that'd be good. So accept the TAM plan and direct us to submit it to
Also move that.
Caltrans.
I will second.
A motion and a second. Can we call the vote?
Director Roberts? Yes. Director Gitlin?
Yes.
Director Short?
Yes.
Madam Chair Kime?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cohen?
Yes, thank you. Okay, let's move on to item 7, the discussion fiscal year 2017-18 annual RCTA service performance data. Thank
This one has
you.
a handout. We tried to compensate for the fact that couldn't fit it on one page and have to be readable by making it color.
Oh,
So sorry about that. This is why we were talking about, we were a little late. I was looking at it right up to the, what this is, it's our first look at our performance data, our ridership data, hours, miles, and stuff for last fiscal year that ended on June 30th, and also a snapshot of the prior 2 fiscal years, so we can see how the trends are going for each route in this case. Again, we'll be back to you then. Our next meeting, it might turn out to be in December, with this data converted into our traditional format, which is a little much easier to read. It's a little bit more like a Word document. But I wanted to get this data to you guys because I know we've all been anxious to see how the service has been performing lately. And I wish I had better news, but you see a lot of negatives in the 3-year trend, and that's we're going to touch on those one by one here real quick. We'll go as fast as you guys want. The key metrics are on the left in the purple. Sorry, that purple come out a little dark, but the top one's just kind of an idea of how many mobility devices we're carrying. But then we go right into the, I guess, the prime stats, the key metrics, key performance indicators, total passengers, there's a blank row there, and then we go into revenue hours, vehicle hours, which are basically just revenue hours plus some deadhead hours. Same with miles. We have, starting in fiscal year 17-18, thank you, Chuck, we've been capturing the deviation miles. We have a couple routes that do deviations, and those do need to be categorized and captured separately, and it wasn't happening in the past. And then at the bottom, the two basically then divide up the numbers and come up with a couple key stats that transit people really are into, which is passengers per revenue hour and miles per passenger boarding. Especially the passengers per hour one's really interesting. So starting from left to right, in the gray section is your dial-a-ride 3-year history. As you guys know, we provide general public and ADA paratransit dial-a-ride in the Crescent City kind of urbanized area here. The trends on that have been basically going down over the 3-year span. Deadhead hours actually has went up a little bit, which is interesting. It may just be more accurate collection of that. but maybe not as much as some of the other routes. So as we go through them, we see ridership dropping 44%. That's noteworthy over the 3-year period. The use of wheelchair clients has dropped 80%. Some of this could be maybe data collection, integrity things.
Do we have information on why there's been such a drop? I mean, are we interviewing, presumably we have contact info, right?
Yes, oh yeah, for the dollar ride customers, for sure, yes.
Have we done any sort of outreach or?
No, at this point, these stats just got put together this week.
Okay.
So I guess we were going to talk about it and see what kind of direction you wanted to have to try to figure things out. Backing up a mile or two nationally, most transit agencies are in the toilet too, but these numbers are alarming. But the dollar ride actually going down in usage a little bit is fine, because that does save us revenue hours that we can use for fixed routes. So it's not all bad.
But we're down across the board.
Yeah, we're down across the board. That's what makes it bad. Exactly,
That's
Lori.
very interesting, and I'm wondering why.
Yeah, no, as am I. If you look on Route 1, which is our route that, one of the 4 Crescent City locals, 1, 2, 3, 4 are all our Crescent City routes. They each run once an hour and they're interlined, so together they basically provide half an hour service through town. Route 1 is the second strongest route, I believe, but it's also suffered a loss of 18% in ridership in the last 3 years. It's 19% also. That's an interesting figure. It's down in revenue hours as well, and I'm thinking that's because Route 1 used to be provided on Saturdays and it's no longer, and holidays, and now it isn't. So that probably accounts for about 300 hours a year. We reduced all the local routes, as you'll recall, when our funding got slashed 2 years ago. We dropped an hour of service, half hour early morning, half hour at the end of the evening. So all of them sort of trailed down a little bit because of that. The productivity actually on Route 1 is hanging in there. It's actually up ever so slightly, about 1.2%. But yeah, most of the other metrics are down. Route 2 is our star route. It's got always has been, but its numbers are down 20% over the 3-year period, from 31,000 passengers a couple in 15-16 down to 24,557 last year. So that's a concerning drop as well. Revenue hours on that one are only down about 4%, because that one does run on the weekends. The 2 and 4 continue to run on Saturdays like they always did, where 1 and 3 dropped out when we had to save money a couple years ago. Route 3, I apologize, the green one, it got chopped off. We were trying, it was not readable if I got it to fit on one page, and I was unable to get it to nicely page break for me. But its trend line numbers are down pretty significantly also, 14% overall over the 3-year period. No real, the same issues challenge the agency on all these routes. We don't know any one particular reason why they might be down. That one's also showed a little resiliency on the riders per hour. It's actually up about 8%. So it's the hours that it's out there, it's actually producing slightly better. It's just it runs less hours overall because it's not running on Saturdays or holidays anymore. Route 4 is
So, back up, Joe, just a second, I'm sorry. I mean, we have cut these routes. So, I mean, that's gotta play into the downtrend a little bit, right?
what's that? That we reduced them a little?
Yeah, I mean, if we're not running Saturdays and we're not running holidays and we cut a half an hour before and we've cut a half an hour after,
Yes.
I mean, that's obviously playing into these numbers.
Yes. Yeah, especially you can see when there's a case that the riders per hour has stayed pretty solid and the overall numbers drop, then you know it's because we're providing less units of service.
But your revenue miles are down.
Yeah. Miles and hours should go down kind of together.
So I don't know, dropping the routes, I mean, obviously it made an impact to our revenue overall, but revenue per mile is down seemingly equal to the other metrics.
Yeah, and finishing up the two regional routes, Route 20 is the Smith River to Arcata, that's in gray on page 2, and Route 199 in red is the East County Gasky-Hyuchi line. Those aren't doing much better. Actually, ridership, well, let me take that back. We have actually seen an increase, albeit from a very modest beginning three years ago. The Route 199 has increased 28%. So that's kind of interesting. We believe a good chunk of that's because we've discovered some recreational market on that, in the summertime especially. We have groups that are using it to, I believe, kayak at the river. And so that's helping the summer season numbers look really much better on the 199, but then it goes down in the winter. So the 199 is actually coming out of this report to be sort of the shining light. Going back to Route 20, we've seen a 33% drop in ridership over 3 years. When we made the service more affordable last year, that's a more discouraging thing. We took it from $30 a pop down to a zonal scale that's usually anywhere from 6 to 10, and ridership didn't respond positively to it. So that's disconcerting. Productivity on that is kind of trending with the overall ridership is down 33%. The productivity per hour is down almost 20. So we were carrying 3.38 riders per hour, which was not great anyway 3 years ago, but now it's down to 2.71. The bottom one is miles per passenger. So whenever the productivity goes down, then this one goes up. So they're a negative correlation between those two stats. It's up to over 10 miles per passenger now, which indicates how long of a route it is and how the ridership is tanked. On the far right there is an aggregate of all the routes, Dial Ride, the 2 regionals, and the 4 locals here in town. And it shows similar stats. So we're down 10% on our productivity per hour from 6.44 to 5.78. Ridership as a whole, 23.99%, so pretty much 24% drop in ridership. We're seeing less wheelchairs, 41% less mobility devices, which is good for the system's on-time performance for sure. And that's what struck Chuck and I as we sat and looking at these numbers just before we drove over here. It's like something doesn't compute in that we really strongly believe that we're running the best service that we ever have as far as reliability, courtesy, professionalism, and then we redid the fare structure for them to make it more affordable, and passengers just aren't there. So, yeah, it's frustrating.
Do they know about it? Do they know that it's
I think that
expensive?
You hit the nail on the head there. We have no money or time for marketing, and that's definitely a shortfall of the agency. Yeah. So that's something that we're not doing. For example, Chuck heard an ad from Curry Transit just the other day on our radio station here. So there's a lot more we can do marketing-wise. It's a good chance that some people don't even know the fare structure got redone and made more affordable because we haven't done anything to market it. We don't have a marketing budget per se. We've got a few thousand that we use for printing brochures. We keep up with that. Our brochures are accurate 100%, and we keep them stocked up. But beyond that, mass media placement, we haven't done anything like that. So that's this. I don't have a write-up about it, but we just walked through it. It's not great news. We'll go through it again with a write-up in the normal annual report format. We just got our first look at the financials. The first draft of the audit came in, so we'll have that for you guys in December probably as well. And that'll match money because our operating costs have actually went up as expected because of the minimum wage increases and whatnot. So it's costing us more to deliver the service and less people are consuming it, which is the exact opposite of what we want to see. So, yeah.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What I was wondering, do you have a breakdown of how many of the passengers are paying with a punch pass or cash or with the monthly riders?
We do. It's not shown here, but we have that on the main giant mega spreadsheet. We do have that, yeah. And there was.
I was wondering how that correlates with where the decrease in ridership is.
I'd have to, I can bring that back to you at the next meeting. We have to crunch further, but we do have that data available there was a seam between the 2 prior years and this one because we did the fare structure change. So that's been a challenge. That's why it took so long to get this data for you, because I had to go in and do some cleaning because it wasn't compatible with the old data because we have new different fare media and zone structures now. But yeah, we can bring that back to you and take a look and see if there's any insight we can gain that way.
Any other questions? Okay, item number 8, approve amendment number 1 to the RCTA Short Range Transit Plan Consultant Agreement with Ronnie Kraft Consulting in the amount of $5,712 to expand the scope of the SRTP work to include a Consolidated Transportation Service Agency Planning and Program Development Chapter.
Yes, this item's before you. I think the last time we talked about this, we said we'd bring it back for an amendment. At that time, we thought it would be Dan Herron and I doing the planning, but Tamara suggested the idea of why don't we just have Ronnie and Cliff, the consultant team that's doing the short-range plan, go ahead and do it while they're on the project. So we got a proposal from them, and it was a competitive proposal, so that's what we've decided to bring to the board, a simple amendment, and they're going to do the CTSA chapter. That way, it's probably better that a different party, because it may end up saying that, we should do this or we should do that. So they're very interested in getting started on this. They are geared up, and they're just waiting for this amendment to be approved. And this will just be add this task to the regular schedule for the short-range plan, which is targeted to be done early in 2019 and adopted by spring.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion to that, to approve this amendment.
So moved.
Any public comment? Seeing none, can you pull the vote, please?
Director Gitlin?
Yes.
Director Roberts?
Yes.
Director Short?
Yes.
Madam Chair Kime?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cohen?
Yes. Excellent. Okay, Joe, number 9, discuss the funding increases from SB1 to RCTA and the impacts that'll have on RCTA if Prop 6 was to pass.
Thank you, be glad to. Try to keep it simple and short here, and then I also attached a informational presentation that the local transportation commission that included both transit and roadway projects. But focusing strictly on Redwood Coast Transit, what has SB1 done for us? The revenues from SB1 passing, which happened in early 2016, began to flow to us in 16-17, and it increased our STA account by about 100,000 per year, a little over 100, which was huge because if you may remember the cuts we made to the service that very same fiscal year in reaction to the lost federal money. One of the reasons at the end of that year we came out okay and actually didn't deplete our reserves at all was because the SB1 money sort of came to our rescue in the very same year, just out of good fortune. So then in addition to the 100,000 a year that's remained steady, that was about our increase again in 17-18 and 18-19. The SB1 created a new program for transit capital called State of Good Repair, and we're getting about 30,000 a year out of that starting in 17-18 and again this year. That currently in this year's budget we put it towards bus stops. But looking at that TAM plan, now that we've done it and had a chance to look and see kind of what we're up against there, it's very likely it could be used for helping to purchase vehicles in the future too. So it's just that's restricted to capital, that $30,000 piece. So that makes the total SB1 increase to Redwood Coast Transit at about $130,000 a year. So obviously if we lose that to a budget of just over $1 million, that's going to be about a 10% loss, over 10%, and that would be pretty devastating to us. As you see, we're already in a vulnerable spot with ridership loss in many cases, so we would probably be looking at some of the least productive services would need to be reduced or eliminated in order to offset that $130,000 loss, 100,000 of which it would be operating. So on page 2 we just note a few of our lesser productive pieces, none of which we really want to cut though. Route 199 that's slowly doing a little better. That would be one of the choices. But then that would there'd be no transit service at all in the rural area of East County, which, I know nobody wants to see that. Route 20, we just moved that unproductive late night trip to the midday, so we don't have any idea. Intuitively, we think that's going to help the route and help the community and make half-day trips to Humboldt County more doable, but it could be one that gets reduced. We're going to have to find the money somewhere. Or we could also further surgically take a scalpel to the local routes. We could go after Saturday service further, which is contra to what the passengers want. We just did the outreach with them, and they want more Saturday service, and they want Sunday service, and they can't understand why we can't give it to them. So this would be, obviously unpleasant to do that. Or we could look again towards the evening, another hour of weeknight service too. So none of those are attractive options. So we're hoping that, we can't, all we can do is present the facts, but if it doesn't pass, then those cuts won't be necessary. But if it is, it could be as necessary as this summer. I'm not sure on the implementation schedule of this sort of a repeal, but if the money were to go away next fiscal year, which would be what, 1920, then we'd have to make budget adjustments that fast. In about 3 or 4 meetings, we'd be looking at what to cut in the spring. So that's basically all I had. It also aggravates the fact that we've got each year the minimum wages went up, so our operating costs for our operations is going up each year. We're going to have to look at where do we trim, because we have flat revenues and rising delivery costs, so we have that issue no matter what. So this would just aggravate that even more.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Thank you for putting that together, Joe, about SB1. Some people have already sent their ballots in, I know, but for anyone that's watching that hasn't yet voted, the reality is that there's a significant adjustment to just our little old bus system if we should lose that, let alone the other transportation features that SB1 has been paying for and projects completed. So thank you for adding that. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Move on to item 10, short-range transit plan, workshop presentation, transit technology currently or soon to be implemented at RCTA and potential future transit technology projects that RCTA may pursue.
Sorry about that long title. This come out of our last meeting in August. We had Cliff Chambers and Ronnie were here, and we walked through some strategic planning, some priority setting with the board, and one of the tier 1 projects that was unanimously selected by the board was to implement more technology and to bring back some information. I've been promising you guys a little workshop on this for a while. So this is it. So the format that we're going to just kind of walk through, this is just an information discussion item. We start with the technology that we have now, and then we go into some stuff that we don't have that we could maybe go after, some of which is more feasible than others. Going backwards, just like by the time Ms. Roberts was with our team, we didn't have any technology. So it's just in the last couple of years we've gotten our toes in the water on transit technology here. So first off, all of our vehicles are now equipped with onboard video systems. So that's a huge thing for me, and we were able to do that over the last couple of years with the remnants of some Cal OES, Office of Emergency Services money, and transit fleet, which came from the Prop 1B that I always go back and harp on, but that did have a lot of cool aspects for transit capital about 10 years ago, but it's unfortunately pretty much spent down and expired now. So we equipped all the vehicles with camera systems. I think all but one are Apollo video systems, which is a state-of-the-industry leader, and they're really easy to use, and you know, Chuck and I use those all the time. They help with incidents, accidents, all sorts of investigations. Next up was CTS, is the name of our dollar ride scheduling software, our paratransit scheduling software. It's it was pledged as part of our new contract with First Transit that started January of 2017, and it was implemented a few months later in September of 17. The training, and then the hiccup of, you remember Kevin Heckman, who was Chuck before Chuck was Chuck? Kevin left us just in the middle of the implementation of that, so we probably lost some momentum there, but now we're back on it, and we have been using it since September, but we found a lot of dirty data in there when we went into the reports, like 1 mile trips that somehow became 1,900 mile trips, like wow, where did they take them? Anyway, so Chuck's staff's been going through and meticulously cleaning the data. Some of it's been the interface with the tablets that are on board the Dollar Ride buses, because when an operator pulls into a pickup, they push a button and that notes the time and the pickup. Then they do the same when they drop them off. And if anybody doesn't do that, the mileage can go wacky. So it's a training and getting used to it phase. We got our first monthly report that looks pretty good out of CTS because it produces a number of industry transit kind of reports each month. So we just started getting the reports last month. So, and the data's looking pretty good now. So this implementation, I would say cautiously, is successful, and we're pretty much fully implemented on that. And that's a big one. Paratransit scheduling software eliminates a lot of the manual data entry that used to have to occur the next day off of paper manifest with scribbling and mileage. So the drivers used to have to write that all down by hand. So that's all been, a lot of that's been automated now through the tablets. The next one up is we have GeoTabs, is the name of the brand, AVL, Automatic Vehicle Location System. Larger transit agencies with much better funding have much more elaborate AVL systems, but this is a low-end system that was pledged, lower end, I don't want to criticize it too much, lower end system that was pledged to us as part of the proposal from First Transit, and it has been deployed. There's been a couple of vehicles that have been fighting it. It plugs into the ECM module, the computer brain module underneath the dash of the vehicle, and then communicates its location to a website, and it's a web portal where we can look into it and see where the vehicles are. And then there's a few other things it can do. It reports on speeding, so if it detects a vehicle going over a certain threshold, we'll get that report. There's a few other things. If we get it firing, I don't feel we're there with it yet at all, but if we want to push it to its limits and see what it can do for us because we can afford it. The other systems that I've actually had the pleasure or pain, depending on the day, the other systems that I've dealt with can be up to $1 million, and there's just no capital money to that magnitude that we'd be able to access that. So it would be great if this basic system were able to work for us and do the things we want, like if it could identify how the actual vehicle time arrival, if we could put some time points in there to see how our on-time performance is, that would be huge, because that's something that the more elaborate AVL systems definitely do. This one we have to try to see if we can get it set up to at least maybe the start and end point of a trip, if it can capture that and let us know if it arrived on time or not. So we're still working with it. At this point, I think it's got potential. So let's just say it's like 75% implemented. We're still not where we want to be with it. It has optional products if we decide to keep it and use it. It has a vehicle health monitor module, which then communicates some of the engine performance stuff, which would be good for Nick. So that's another thing, but it's an additional premium price. So First hasn't offered to give us that yet. But anyway, so that one's partially implemented. Next up is BusEDA real-time. We've talked about apps for real-time bus location for our riders. Proposed in the 2017 proposal was this thing called BusEDA that I'd never heard of. And as it turned out, they're already out of business, so it didn't go well. The good news about this whole process is it reminded me to stay on top of First and ask them to replace that with something else. And they're looking at a product called Bishop Peak, and there's another one. So I was just talking to Chuck's boss, to Mark, who was almost going to join us today. I wish he would have. He's hoping to get down here and meet you guys soon. I was talking to Mark about a comparable replacement. This Bishop Peak looks pretty good. Apparently it's more expensive though, so he came wondering if we wanted to help pay for it, which I said no at this point, but I'm willing to take input from you guys. and see. But there was another one that was fairly comparable to what Bus ETA was going to cost first in their bid model. And so I've asked him to get more information on that and what it can do, because we really don't have a lot of extra operating money to throw around at this point. So that one's not implemented at all, and First Transit's responsible for getting us something there to fulfill their proposal promise. And then we go into other stuff that we do or don't do that I think it's, well, Google Transit, this is actually belongs in the top, in the table we just walked through. Table 2, item 1 is Google Transit, which we've been participating in for several years. We don't market it well, which could be said about a lot of our services, but we are on Google Maps. If you go to Google Maps and then select the Transit tab and then put in, it'll help you do your trip planning with Redwood Coast route data, static data. It doesn't give you real time. If the bus is late, it's still going to show you the scheduled time. Google Transit Live real time is something that's, I believe our Bay Area friends are doing it, a number of them, but it's a little trickier. We're not there yet, but Google Transit does promote our static schedule information. So each time we do a service change, it's another task I do. I have to go in there and program the new information. So pretty much every July we do that and update it. We have a consultant called Trillium out of Portland that created a GTFS portal that makes it easier to do it. You don't have to be a computer programmer if you have their portal, so we use them just to give me their tool for updating our Google Transit feed, our GTFS data as they call it. So we have that one, then the rest of them goes into stuff that we don't really have much of. Real-time passenger information app, we talked about it earlier. They owe us something, they being First Transit, from the proposal, so we're hoping to get that and see if it's an answer to what we need, and if not, then we need to look out in the market and see if there's some other thing that's affordable that can give us the passenger-facing information that we'd like. An app that tells the passenger where the bus is and gives them not only the static schedule, but maybe real-time bus information to let them know, oh, the bus is 5 minutes late, I don't have to run, I'm okay. That kind of stuff really helps if you're a bus rider. So that would be the value added of getting that. And we don't have it yet, but we're hoping maybe this Bishop Peak or the other competitor might be able to provide it for us. Signs, screens, and displays. I think this came up like at our bus stops. We don't have any like departure data like you see at the airport or a busy transit station maybe in the Bay Area or Seattle or something. We don't have that yet. We'd like to start with just static route information at the bus stop, which goes a long way, just having the schedule and route posted so if someone walks up they can see what time the bus is coming. That would be a good first start before we go into any electronics at the bus stops.
We don't have any of the bus stops with the route info bus times?
Not much, no. None that I'm aware of that's accurate. I've seen some old stuff out there, but no, it's not been kept up on. Again, well...
Something like that, to me, is just crazy. That seems like a very simple fix.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little more than you think. Like anything else, the devil's in the details. You got to produce the piece and then get it laminated and installed, and that's the kind of stuff that's proved challenging with the model we have here. It's not something we can really ask these guys to do without, at First Transit, their job's to operate buses, so then it falls on me. And there's only, we've talked ad nauseum that we don't have many hours here. So yeah, it's something we need to do, we want to do, it's just not happening out there. We, next up would be onboard Wi-Fi. This is a project that's actually not that hard to implement if there's funding available. One of our challenges will be on some of probably the routes that would be most useful to have Wi-Fi, which are the regional ones. There's some cellular coverage issues along those alignments, but that can be brought to the customer. We could do that for about, 700 or so per bus for a router.
Mr. Gitlin, or down, please. Thanks.
And then, so a few hundred per bus for the router, and then you're looking at like $20, $30 per bus per month for the airtime, because they use cellular airtime to provide the onboard Wi-Fi. But it's a doable project if we decide it's a top priority. Our local routes, the riders aren't on there as long. They'd probably still use it though, but it would perform better in town here. But probably the best use would be the regional routes. Mobile ticketing is another project that could be implemented pretty easily, even by our staff level. This one, mainly because there's one of the industry leaders, Token Transit, has a model where they basically do all the upfront work, then they just take a percentage of the ticket sales. And this would allow passengers to buy their bus pass, their regional bus ticket, any kind of fare they would basically pay cash, they could buy with their phone and just flash to the driver. So it would be an added convenience to the passenger. It would just cost us a percentage of the fare that we were going to get anyway, so it would make it easier to buy their tickets, which would be especially helpful for us because we don't have any staffing at the transit center, which is a major issue. So if folks get there, they don't have anyone to ask questions or buy the tickets for, then the bus pulls up and it tends to be stressful. So in this case, we could implement it, promote it, and I think there'd be a percentage of our ridership, especially some of the regional travelers, would love this. And this could be done as well fairly easily, just because their motto is very turnkey. We would just sign an agreement, work things out, provide them our fare media that we want to have involved, different types of stuff, and then this vendor would then take it from there, load it up, and it'd be just up to us to advertise to our customer that the service is available. An onboard annunciation system is usually tied into the full-blown AVL systems that we talked about earlier that are pretty expensive, but it makes the upcoming stop announcements and then usually displays an LED display for the hearing impaired inside the bus, rather than having the bus driver have to announce those stops. To be ADA compliant, it's part of the ADA law and fixed route that you need to announce major stops that have connections and verbally, and these kind of toys can do that. But the standalone versions I've never heard anything good about, so the ones that work good are part of a full-blown AVL system that we probably don't have the money to even pursue. Then we move to table 3 on the next page, which is so the last group was organized by their passenger forward, passenger-centric conveniences that would make the lives of our passengers better and make riding the bus more palatable for the public. Then this next group is more tools for us that would help us get better data. We call them operation and management tools in this table. The first one is called reporting and management analytics. In this category, I would call like a dashboard system that would be a place where, lacking the AVL CAD system that we probably can't ever afford, this would be a place where maybe First Transit would enter the day's stats rather than into an Excel spreadsheet that maybe we don't see till the end of the month. Or even then we'd have to dig in there and look for what we want. This would maybe enter the day's ops stats into the dashboard that would then easily show it to myself or to you guys. Anyone who logged in could see the key metrics right away without having to dig through and do any calculations on a spreadsheet. TransTrack's one of the big ones that is very popular. There are others out there though too. First Transit actually has their own proprietary dashboard that Chuck uses that helps him. He just can't share it with us, but it helps him to put his data together. So they're already using it. It would just be a matter of something that I could access or share with the board, which would be nice because trust me, dealing with these spreadsheets is a nightmare. Other things that we could do, automatic passenger counters, again, are another component of most AVL systems. They're laser beams mounted in the door, and that gives you your activity per stop, especially when you add in the GPS element of an AVL. So, again, probably beyond our means here unless the Capital Ferry comes and we get an early Christmas present of millions of dollars someday. But these are really nice, but in the meantime, because our ridership levels are fairly low, we do a good job of counting, I think, the people as it is. Electronic fare boxes are something that we've discussed here at previous board meetings. They basically are 15,000, 20,000 or so, maybe with installation apiece, and they accept currency and coins. They count them, noting the beep when enough money's been put in. They also have a computer terminal that the driver then interacts with to let this fare box know what kind of passenger's paying, like maybe it's a senior, maybe it's a youth. So it has a little computer terminal plus the large electronic box where the money gets dropped in and the vaults are in. It can produce some robust data too. It has a reporting element to it, but they're also fairly high maintenance. So right now we're a one-person maintenance shop, so that would be an impact. And right now we don't have the capital money to equip them. At 15, if they were 15K per bus, it would end up running us about $200,000 to equip the fleet. But yeah, in my opinion, it's not really a great fit for us right now. They don't really provide a tremendous amount of value. They slow the boardings down. Sometimes they don't want to accept old bills, or the driver has a confrontation because you only paid $1.39 and it's $1.50. You know, so there's a lot of things to think about with them. So I don't see them as a panacea, but they are an option out there for technology. The last one in this section is...
Joe, can I interrupt you just for
Yes,
a
sir.
second? I have to leave now. I should mention to
that's
you. Could you just give us an update on the reserve?
I don't have that data yet. We're waiting for the audit.
Would you let us know what the reserve is? And
Yes.
I had it, we got back from the auditor's office.
Yep.
And I appreciate that. Thank you very
No, that's a great idea. Thank you, Roger. Yeah, that'll be on our next meeting. Hopefully we'll have a good idea on what the current reserve level is. This last one was just TNC apps for Uber or Lyft, and that would perhaps be ways that we could cover service like evenings and weekends when productivity is low, but we would need a partnership with a reliable Uber and Lyft presence locally to do that. So it's on the list, but I don't know that we're ready for that yet here. Nor, you know, yeah, there's a lot of work on that project. I know, for example, one of my old employers is doing that in Dublin. They actually have used, I believe it's Uber, to replace like their fixed route service in a part of town that wasn't producing very well. So they're providing like a subsidy to or a cap maybe on what the Uber costs. None of them are more than $10 or something. So it can be used to replace fixed route service, but I don't know that they're saving any money. Time will tell on that. But yeah, I don't think we're quite ready for that yet. And then the last category, table 4, shows some technologies that are internal facing, like driver and safety technologies. Vehicle health monitoring, I touched on that earlier. That's could be a module on an AVL system that alerts us if there's a check engine light or maybe engine oil is hot or any kind of alert that the vehicle might be in trouble. We might have that capability through geotabs. So as we master what the base geotabs can do, then we may want to decide at that point to add on and look into the vehicle health module. Right now it's not activated on our system. And then the last category is driver training systems, and these are out there. DriveCam is one of them, Mobileye. There's a number of aids that can, a lot of them sense G-forces like sudden braking or acceleration. Some of them actually have like additional cameras to provide the driver some blind spot views and stuff like that. So there's a lot of exciting stuff out there on the safety and driver training, like correction side of things. But again, with money being an issue and First Transit carrying the insurance, we kind of feel, at least I do, I feel that they should, if they want that, they should bring that to the table, because they're going to save on the insurance, not us. So right now we don't have any of that. It was listed as options. I believe Mobileye and maybe DriveCam were options in the proposal that we chose not to execute because it would have increased our costs. And then at the end of this is a little visual presentation that actually kind of does the same thing at dividing by high benefit, low cost, all the way down to low benefit, high cost for these various different categories of technology projects. I'm not sure this was our SRTP folks put this together after we talked about this project. But most of it I agree with. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with that. So we're hoping for some board direction on which category of projects you'd like to see as the top priority within technology, which ones not to worry about so much for now. Or at least, you know, let me know what you think. There's a lot to digest here. Hopefully there'll be, I might get a little bit more insight. I'm going to a transit technology conference next month that CALAC's putting on down in Napa. And the whole theme of that one's technology, so I'll probably learn some more stuff even.
I'd like to see it all.
Me too. Yes. And it could be possible if there was more transit capital money, for sure. That would
Well,
help.
let's make sure that SB1 stays in place, because that's going to help.
Indeed.
Any questions from Joe? Any suggestions from the board?
What's our latest on the marketing campaign? Our ad campaign.
Oh, the advertising revenue campaign. Good question. So the ad revenue campaign, we've been in place. We've got no ads have been put on the buses yet, so that's bad. The good thing is, though, there's 3 customers that are interested in us that we're at different stages of negotiating with. The one major one with a local social service is under their attorney review. We got a good package presented for them. That would be a great one. It's a pretty large buy. Another one's with Contour Air, and I'm dealing with an ad agency out of LA with those guys. But last I heard is we agreed on a package, and now I'm just waiting for the signed contract from them. It's a modest package, but it all helps. And then the third one came in recently. Who's their client? I don't know who the client is. It's another LA-based ad agency. Or no, Sacramento-based. Yeah. So we have 3 of them that are interested in us, that are looking at rate sheets and packages. I've offered them all competitive deals with discounts and stuff, so we're hoping to see something really soon.
So projections, maybe 30 days, 60 days?
Yeah, hopefully by 60 days when we meet again, hopefully we'll have something going.
And
some signs on the buses, yeah.
Excellent.
Hopefully some revenue coming in.
That would be great.
Yeah, it would. As far as how that plays into what we do with the technology or marketing, we haven't really gotten board direction on how we want to spend the money for sure. But one way we could is to fund a marketing program with it.
Right. And
give us a little money to market.
Well, that makes the most sense. I mean, we need to bring this in. We're not doing any marketing. I think that's reflected of what our rider numbers are. And I think it is important to let people know. If they don't know that we've lowered the rates, if they don't know, that we're doing special packages for kids or for students, we're not going to get the ridership that we need.
Right.
So it makes sense to me to take the advertising funding to put right back into advertising.
Definitely makes sense.
That's the only way. That's the only way we're going to increase revenue, is if we tell more people
And
about.
invest. We need to invest in
Yeah.
ourselves.
What is the one item that you think, Joe, would bring us, of all this technology stuff, or do you want to wait and tell us after you go to this conference and learn more? But looking at all of these options.
I think the customer-facing app that will interact with our schedules and our real-time bus location emitters, if Geotabs is capable of doing this. We don't know that yet. But I think the app would be best. We need something to attract ridership. A lot of this stuff makes our lives easier on reporting data or this or that. And also, secondly, we hit on it earlier, and I don't have a good answer other than I haven't had time to do it. I think we need to get the schedule information out to the bus stops. That's just basic transit 101.
Basic.
Yeah.
So who maintains our stops for us?
First Transit cleans them and fixes vandalism, but dressing them up with amenities is me. It's us. I mean, there's no one else. So it's one of those deals we've talked about a lot. The current contract, it's all I can do to keep up with the basic stuff and run these meetings. We barely have time to do anything else.
I'm sure we could find a partner in the city or county personnel that, once we design the signs, I'm sure we could get somebody to put them up for us.
Yeah, I tend to agree. If we
totally
could get
agree with
them
you.
produced and designed, then it would be a matter of getting someone to go out and tape them up or whatever our fastening mechanism might be.
But you're absolutely right. We got to put our routes on the stops.
Yeah,
Have to.
absolutely. And the stop out front, any progress on removing that?
Yeah, I think so.
You're right, I'm sorry, I'm turned around.
Yeah. I don't know that we identified where to move it to yet, but we did, I remember that you guys mentioned we could move it, because, yeah, it's not even getting served by a route right now.
Yeah, and if we could use it somewhere else. I don't know if that's appropriate to put over by the casino, or wasn't there an area where a pad was poured?
Yeah, the casino has a new pad, and we have 2 brand-new shelters that are in pallets. Just we need to find a construction mechanism, so we approached the county and the city to try to get them to do the job, and county said they're shorthanded right now, so I'm going to check back with Heidi. But yeah, so as soon as we can find an entity to do the install, there's 2 of them that can go out. We're going to put one of the new ones at the casino, or at the, not the casino, it's their administration office, right?
Oh, yeah, it's.
Yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, at the casino,
Yeah.
there's not such a good spot.
Yeah, I should have said the tribe.
But yeah, this Flynn shelter, we can make that a priority to find a new home for it. It's the one that's out here. That could
Excellent.
go,
Could you CC me when you're reaching out to Heidi?
okay.
Thanks. Okay, anything else that we're into?
As far as suggestions off of this list that you would like to hear from us, yeah, the Google Transit is kind of a no-brainer to me. Onboard Wi-Fi, I was thinking that our local routes probably would be kind of fruitless to have that, but on our longer routes, would maybe make them more attractive. So we could probably get away with that for a significantly smaller cost.
Yeah.
And mobile ticketing seems pretty easy also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any way to automate, I mean, I just came back from the Bay Area, so any way to automate transit on your phone. But I will say, you know, I'm a US Cellular customer up here, and down in the Bay Area, it doesn't work as well. Let's just say it doesn't work as well. So had I been somewhere that had Wi-Fi readily available, we have people that are traveling here that have AT&T, and their phones just won't work. I mean, that's
true.
I think if we had onboard Wi-Fi, I think that would benefit. I think it would benefit everybody, to be honest, but.
I never thought about that, but you are right. I deal with people all the time who move here, and I was one of them. I had AT&T and I had to switch to Verizon, but I find that a lot with my clients.
Last night on the airplane, there was a young woman who we landed, and her phone, she's like, my phone don't work. What? And I said, do you have AT&T? And she said, yeah, like, of course, everybody has AT&T. She lives in San Francisco. But so I gave her the hotspot on my phone so that she could call the person that was picking her up.
No, you're right. It's a good point. Good point.
So circling back to that then, do we want to gather some quotes? Luckily, I've done this project at Petaluma. We implemented it on all of our local routes. It's sort of like a big version of Crescent City. And so people were naysayers like, oh, what's anyone going to need? They're only on your bus for 15, 20 minutes. But we actually had a lot of usage because we had reports, and you know, we could see that especially the kids loved it. But you know, that's how I know the data on how much they cost and the airtime and stuff. So I can get us some quotes.
Like what Director Short was suggesting, can we do it on some and not on others?
Yeah, we could start with the regional, because yeah, we separate the buses, the bigger ones, that especially the diesels. I think there's one gas in there, but the bigger ones do the regional stuff, so we could start with them, and that would lower the cost, and we could see how that works, and then shoot for like probably US Cellular as a carrier, whatever covers the corridor the best.
Brian.
But yeah, I can bring that back with some quote numbers and get you guys' thoughts, and maybe we can pursue that after the next meeting then. And same with, what about token what about I don't want to say There's other vendors, but these guys, what about the mobile ticketing? That could happen pretty fast if you guys are interested. I could
I like that.
get them
I
called.
put a star by that one. I put a star by on the Wi-Fi and the mobile
Yeah.
ticketing.
All right, so I can get started on that. That could even be in place as soon as the end of the year. Those guys are pretty quick. So we can start with that, and then we'll work with First Transit to see if they can get us an app through the one that's similar in price to the one they proposed that went out of business.
I would suggest putting the mobile ticketing address app on our signs that we're going to make for our bus stops.
Bus stops,
So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Probably the Google Transit also would be good to put on that. Okay.
The other thing as well, you know, if you, when we have those schedules and stuff up, if there are any changes that need to be made, you can always say, you know, you can add a QR code or something like that. So, or, you know, download this app and get up to the minute schedule changes or anything like that. You can automate everything. And I feel like if we didn't get those schedules replaced, or there's, you know, those fare things weren't replaced right away, people would still be able
to get the updated information.
to get updated information.
That's true. Yeah, that would be a nice thing of the QR code. Okay, let me look into adding that. And for sure, we'll put our website. That way they can always double check themselves and, yeah, in case there's been a change that hasn't been reflected on the print version. Most of our shelters don't have map cases or anything, so the way I worked around it in other stops in my long career was kind of taping them up. It may not look the best, but it works. Is that something the board's okay with? Or, because otherwise we need to get map cases installed, so that's going to take longer. I think we have some map cases we discovered on a pallet. So we have some, but they're not installed yet, so that might take a little bit.
So is it just like some plexi that could be attached to the, is that what you mean when you say map case?
The map case is generally, it's actually like a plexi in the front and then metal back that usually bolts into like the whatever the material on the back of the windscreen is. If it's perf metal, it might go through the holes in it, but if it's plastic, you need to drill a hole with washer, and it really mounts against the wall of the shelter and it holds it up there. Lacking a map case, then we'd be talking about like taping it up to the shelter wall with like clear tape, which is,
Yuck.
yeah, it's not great.
that tape does not sound good.
No, it doesn't.
Well, it sounds like some jerk is gonna tear it off
Yeah,
and throw it away.
They can.
Yeah.
They can tear them down.
How do
We
the-
we had pretty good luck with them not doing that
What
in
if-
Petaluma, but they can, yes.
What
lost
if
a
it
few
was
every
just
time.
plexiglass sandwiched to the current plexiglass?
That's what I was curious about. I was wondering about the map cases and whether they'd get vandalized.
They might, yeah.
So
Just
just
squish it.
sandwiching the plexi
And
seems
you have it on
pretty
both
easy.
sides.
Okay.
Print-
pretty easy and hard to vandalize.
Print it on both sides.
So smart.
Not really.
Okay. No, I didn't mean, I wasn't commenting on that. I was just saying okay to the item. Any other comment?
I don't have any more.
Okay.
Anything else? We're all good? Any suggestions? Okay, then I guess we can move on to General Manager's verbal report.
Okay, good news, unlike the last 2 fiscal years of our partnership, our year-to-date hours are actually not trending over so far. So we held back a little this year rather than work real hard in the fall and then run out of hours in June. We started off slower, so hopefully we have enough hours to last to the end of June this time. We've not yet started talking with Autumn, but I'm going to try to get a hold of her and see if we can schedule that in the next couple of months as far as the contract extension that we talked about a few months ago. We do have some good news on the bus front. I touched on it earlier. We knew we had money for, we had received a grant for one, but now there's indications that we've gotten a second one. I mentioned it earlier tonight. So we should be able to order 2 buses, hopefully at our December board meeting, which will be great. And we're looking at, in this order, looking at the replacing the low floor buses that form our Crescent City local service, that perform really well on those, I should say. So that's good news, and hopefully we'll have that. Those are both from 5339 funding, one of which was 2 or 3 years old. It's taken forever to get through Caltrans, but yeah, so fingers crossed, it looks like we'll be able to order a couple buses. We're already evaluating the particular type. We don't want to get the exact same Arbach low floor that we got 6 years ago, because there's been some maintenance issues with those. So we found another similar one that's so far peer agencies are giving good reviews. We're gonna try to get Nick up to Oregon to see some in action at Chuck's old transit authority. They've got 2 of these champions, so we want to have Nick kick the tires and give his official blessing, and then we can order them accordingly. It's important to keep the maintenance guy happy. But yeah, I've heard good things about these as well, so hopefully that's what we order. The low floor thing is so important for operations, because it's so much easier for people to get on and off. It speeds things up, which helps our buses stay on time. So that's all I've got for mine, verbal report.
Questions for Joe? Okay, you're up.
A few things on the item here to bring you up to speed on, and I'll be quick. First of all, Mark Elias has joined us. He's taken Don Swain's spot after Don retired. Mark has spent a lot of years in transportation industry, and then also with Recology. Spent some time with that industry as well, and is back in transportation now. I have several phone calls and contacts with Mark quite during the week. I know he's been in touch with Joe already, so he's off and running, literally. Next thing I wanted to make you aware of is...
Chuck, I'm sorry, what is Mark's new role?
I'm sorry?
What is Mark's role? You said he was new, but what's he doing?
Is he the regional VP?
Yeah. Sorry, my hearing really... I'm going to try hopefully get something to fix it this weekend. So the kind of back to the marketing conversation we were having earlier, a little anecdotal evidence of that. The first 2 weeks that CRR's term was open, Fernando spent an hour over there at their noontime with a table set up and stuff on the table, and he spent a lot of time answering questions, talked to a lot of people. Got a sense that there was a lot of excitement that we're doing this with the CRR students, and I didn't think to grab numbers before I came to give you numbers on this number of students that are riding, but it's pretty decent. We're getting some good ridership, wouldn't you say? And so I can't help but think that some of that has been the result of Fernando's work of talking down there and kind of giving the selling points and explaining how the system works, and so marketing, it does work. I'm sorry? I will do that. And also, speaking of Fernando, he's in Los Angeles this week getting the TSI training that will fully certify him as an instructor with First Transit. It's really about the last certification that he needs to be fully certified with our company. So I'm pretty excited about that for him, and glad that we were able to send him down there and get that training. The training is for a week, so he's been down there for a few days already. I'll get to come home in a couple more days, and bless us with all of his new knowledge. We are fully staffed right now, and we even have an interview set up with another person tomorrow. We'll see what develops with that. So we may be fully staffed plus, which is, if you understand employment in the industry at transit, it's pretty amazing to be fully staffed. It's a huge blessing and helped us to accomplish a lot that other locations are struggling with. We have 2 buses that are broke down right now. Nick's doing a great job of keeping us going. One of those may be back up by the end of the day, but the other one we are still waiting. It's been a interesting parts journey, getting the right parts for the problem that we have with this bus. Last we heard is they were shipping them out again tomorrow. So, because we need to get that bus back on the road.
Is that the adopted bus?
Yeah.
The adopted bus? That's that bus that we got kind of out of the blue from Caltrans, from Calaveras Transit, and it was on, I didn't know this. I mean, I ended up going, I drove it up here, but I didn't notice this thing. It didn't have a pull cord, you know, and then I got to thinking they were running a commuter service where they all went to one employer in Stockton, so they didn't need a pull cord, apparently. But then when we wanted to use it, we need one, so that's been an odyssey getting that equipped with one.
Yeah, part of the ADA compliance, and so we're working on it. Also wanted to, I'm making myself a model today. This is an example of our new uniforms that the drivers are using now. The drivers' uniforms are green, but they sport the RCTA logo on the sleeve. Drivers seem to be liking them. They look pretty sharp, all wearing the same shirt, and so that's a part of customer service that we hope we're continuing to improve on. And that concludes what I had on my list.
Any questions? No?
Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate it. Good job. Love the uniforms.
Thanks for
Yes.
Thanks for modeling.
So, any announcements from any of the directors up here?
I have one.
Yes.
This will be my last meeting.
Oh. You're smiling. That's
That was
not okay.
dramatic, but I am not running for re-election.
You will be
So-
missed.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But it's been fun and educational.
Yep. Thank you for all you've done for us.
You're welcome.
We're going to miss you.
Okay. Well, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.